Hi, everyone, and welcome to Acting Sessions. I'm your host, Marco DiGeorge, and for the next little while, we're going to talk about all things related to acting with you. I am if those of you who don't know me, I am the co-founder and instructor at Truthful Acting Studios. We are an acting conservatory located in Orlando, Florida. And, normally I have actors with me in person as I take them through a journey of learning what the career is like and learning the skill of acting. But I'd like to come online for those of you who can't be with me in person and to answer any of your questions and to talk about various topics as it relates to the field of acting, whether it's the industry, whether it's the art form, really anything as it relates to that. So today, I wanted to talk about more of a general topic of following your dreams, because I think that's very important in this whole path, because that's where it first starts. Everything starts with us with this idea that we want to do this thing called acting. I mean, whether it's acting or whether it's music or whether it's dancing or really any of the art forms that we have, it all starts with this passion or this thing that's inside of us. It's like I really want to do that. It's a drive for something. And so we develop this dream inside of us of wow, I really want to do this. And this is true for people. It doesn't matter where you're from because I see, we have people on with us from all over the world, which is amazing. And this is true for all human beings. We first start with that feeling and it builds into a drive or a passion, and then we develop the thoughts around it, which turn into our dreams. So we, excuse me, if that's where it starts from, right? It starts from this idea of I want to be an actor. And many times it's because you've watched acting or you watched, television shows or movies and something really affected you or you really just enjoyed the adventure you just went on. And it's like, okay, I want to do that too. That's where it started with me. I remember early on in my life and when I was younger, watching Harrison Ford in movies like Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and it was like that's what I want to do. And it reminds us also about what it's like to be childlike again, because as children, we would play and we would use our imagination. And so acting kind of involves a lot of that. It allows us to be in this playful state. But then as we get more into adulthood, we're not sure what to do with that because we do have things like life that gets in the way. We have to pay bills. We have to worry about things like the roof over our head and being able to eat food and being able to put clothes on. So things that take money. And so we're thrust into a world that revolves around needing to make money in order to survive. And that's where we start losing balance on artistic passion because it's very difficult to understand sometimes how we can do our art and still survive as a human being. And that's where we have to kind of stay true to that initial feeling, that initial dream that we had. The people that make it, all of the great artists that you love, whether they're actors, singers, musicians, dancers, sculptors, painters, I mean, everyone that you revere, they followed that dream into it all the way. Meaning, even though life got in the way, and if you follow some of their stories, you'll realize life gets in the way. Even though life got in the way for them, they still followed through. And that's really what I want to talk about today is how do we do that? How do we stay true to the things that we want to do in life, even when life gets in the way? So, and this is amazing. I love seeing, thank you all for those of you who are already commenting. I love to interact with you during these sessions. So, yes, I want this to be very interactive. If you have any thoughts, please put them in the chat. Please let me know if you have any questions. I love answering live questions with those of you who are here with me. So please let's interact. Also, Samantha DiGeorge is on with us as well, and she can also help answer some questions in the chat along with me. But it's great to see all of you here. This is awesome, 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 awesome. So, okay. So first of all, it's important to have something that you're striving for. And I remember early in my journey where I loved the arts, but I had a lot of internal fear about the arts. And then also, as I was graduating college, there was not just my own self consciousness of the art form itself, but I also had the pressure and the anxiety of life. And my personal journey, I put my art down for a while, meaning I set it down because truly believed it wasn't what I was supposed to do. And what I mean by that is inside of me, I felt that this is who I am. I'm an artist. But up here in my head, with everyone else talking to me, I was convinced that being an artist isn't what you do in life because you can't make a living at it. You can't be successful at it. There's no security in it, all of those things. And so I set my art down to enter the corporate world and worked there for a long time. I was in corporate marketing for over a decade. And I did that because that's what I thought I was supposed to do, not because it was what I wanted to do. And it took me a very long time to realize, and it was over 10 years. It took me a very long time to realize that my true calling, which means my passion, the thing that's inside of me that's pulling me somewhere, my true calling was to be an artist. And it brought me back into the artistic world. So, uh, so how do we do this? Now, there's going to be various steps depending on where you are in your life. Meaning, if you're younger and you're still in the schooling years, whether it's in, from high school all the way to through the university level, any of that, then just take classes. Start there. Follow your dreams you can study other things and you can get a degree in anything you want, but take classes and start exploring your art, whether they're film classes, whether they're drama classes, whether they're acting any sort of art type of classes. But take that. Explore that creative side of yourself. It's so important in your life. Even if you end up in a different career, art fuels everything else we do. The creative side of yourself is, I believe, is more important than the logical side of yourself, which is up here. Logical information is important, and it's important to accumulate knowledge over time. It helps us navigate through life, but the creative self is problem solving. The creative side of you helps you deal with day-to-day problems. The creative side allows you to cope with day-to-day problems. So it's not just important in your expression of your art, it's also important for you as a human being. We have two sides of us. We call that the duality of the human psyche. There's like two voices in our head. There's two sides of us. And one of those sides is the logical side, which is constantly trying to steer us of what it thinks we are supposed to do. And that is completely driven by gathered and learned information. That's it, completely driven on that. But then there's the creative side, which comes from down here. It comes from your what we call our core, or you might call it your gut. Like you have a feeling in your gut. It's almost like in your stomach area. We call it our solar plexus. There's a lot of different kind of words for it, but this is what we in the artistic community call our emotional core. So we have our thinking center, which is up in our head, and then we have our emotional center, which is down here, kind of in the center of us. And both of those actually drive us forward. And ideally, they're supposed to be in balance in life, ideally. Meaning that we use both of them together to then make decisions on what we should do. But in the world that we live in, we are typically driven more by thought than by feeling. And the issue with that is that your feeling center, down here, your core, your emotional core, that part of you, your creative side, is your true self. That's your true self. The thoughts that you have in your head is what we call the acquired self. That is the part of you that all other people around you, as you grew up and through life, have told you things, and we collect that up here. The logical mind, meaning your logical thoughts, are there to keep you safe. They're there to navigate you through life and to keep you alive. Survival is its goal. That's what it wants to do. So when you think about something logically, whether you should or shouldn't do it, what you're really doing is saying, is this safe for me to do? Can I get in any trouble? The problem with all of that is the logical mind is always going to calculate worst case scenario. Like, what is the worst thing that could happen? Because it has to make sure you're prepared for that. So it always calculates the worst thing that can happen. And it uses this incredible tool called fear to make sure you navigate away from anything that can hurt you. Now, the core side of us, the emotional core side of us, the part of us that lives in this moment, is a feeling center. It's very positive. It's driven from love, and it's driven from passion and desire and all of these things of your dreams. It's driven by that. And this side of you just wants to run and play. This side of you wants to go out and try all new things and do everything that you want to do. It is ready to do it right now. And ideally, when we're in balance of that, it serves as the parent to the child emotional core. In that way, it kind of keeps it in check, because we can't just allow our emotions to run wild. It will and can get us into a lot of trouble doing that. It's impulsive, and there's no check and balance to it. So the logical mind serves as that check and balance. But the issue, coming back to, well, why don't we all follow our dreams, is because we tend to give more priority to logic, which is fear. We give more priority to the fear than we do our desire to play, to our love center. And when we're out of balance, we then lock ourselves in a box. And that box is the box we create from our logical mind. And it doesn't allow us to play. So now it's like, okay, so when I'm working, really the first year of working with an actor is learning, is teaching them and guiding them to get out of that box. Because as an artist, or any sort of artist, we have to be able to think outside of logic. We have to get into this present moment. We have to follow our passions. We have to dive into that love center, into that emotional center. We have to fully feel, fully express, which is a requirement of all art, is full expression of how we're feeling in that moment. And when we can learn how to put ourselves back in balance, then we have the opportunity to then be successful in the way that we want to be successful. So then what are the things that stop us? Why don't we all just understand this and move forward? So let's just take a couple of very quick examples to this. Let's say, or maybe some of you know or have experienced this. If you ever have known somebody that has worked in a job that they've absolutely hated, but they still continue to work in that job. Well, if you've known someone like this, they go to work day in and day out, but they complain about that job day in and day out. And you kind of wonder, right? If you listen to someone complain, well, why do you continue still going there? And so I'll ask that when I have students come to me and they'll say, I hate my job. It's tearing me out from the inside. I don't like the feeling of it. It's like killing me from the inside out. And that happens quite a bit. Like, well, why do you keep going? And the number one thing is, well, I need to make money. And I'm like, yes, I agree. In the world we live in, we need to make enough money to live and survive and to pay the bills. We have to do that. Absolutely, we do. But why are you going back to that job? Why not find another one? And this is where the logical mind comes in and traps us. Because the moment I ask that, they almost get defensive. It's like, well, I can't get another job. Why? Well, it's because I'm so ingrained here. There's nowhere else for me to go. I'm like, well, have you looked? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, why? Well, because I'm so busy working, right? We get trapped in this cycle. It's weird. And so I'm like, all right, well, maybe you should start looking for a job. And there's no way to find it, no better way to find a new job than to quit your old one. But then they're like, well, I'm not qualified for anything else. Well, like most likely you weren't qualified for what you're doing now when you started it. We learn as we go through work. So that we make all of these excuses, and this is all part of what I call the logical mind. It's all up here, it's fear. And the fear, the logical mind, really what it's telling you is you're safe in this job, even though you hate it, even though you don't like it right now, you're safe. You're safe in the aspect of you're making enough money. Logically, we know you can go to this job. We know you can make enough money coming out of this job to then pay your bills. So then why change that? Logic does not understand feeling. But feeling, you're like it's eating you up inside. You don't like it. It's taking away all of your energy. You feel depressed because of it. All of those things are happening. So what I usually try to do when I see students going through this, or really when I'm talking to anyone, is take the chance in quitting. And if you can't just impulsively take the chance of quitting, then gather some information for your mind to understand that what you're doing isn't going to change. Because the mind will also convince you, well, maybe it will get better. Maybe tomorrow things will get better. I'm like, no, they won't if it's been going on for a while. And that's where we have to look. And because I have so many actors that are working full-time jobs when they start taking classes with me. And it's understandably because you're already maybe in the workforce, you're already established, and at that point you're like, well, I want to come back in and take an acting class. I'm like, yeah, absolutely do that. And they're like, well, how do I transition over? Do I have to quit everything and then put everything into acting? I'm like, no, we do a slow transition over, but the first step is make sure you are completely happy in the job that you have, because if you're not, it will affect in a negative way your acting. So let's first maybe step out of the job you have and let's get another one that is more flexible, that allows you to be more creative. Or quit your full-time job and replace it with a couple part-time jobs. All of these things are possible, but we have to be willing to think outside the box, outside of what we normally do. Maybe you can be an entrepreneur in some ways. Maybe you can start up and you can have different little businesses that give you your flexibility, but it is possible. But we must, above all else, move away from the things in our life that are pulling us down, that are making us feel any sort of negativity whatsoever. We must step away from that. It's very important that we do, because any sort of extreme negativity you have in your life, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it's who knows? I mean, when I say relationship, it can be like a romantic relationship, it can be family, it can be friends, any sort of relationships. But when we have extreme negativity in our life and we don't make changes, that energy around us pulls us down and will not allow us to be creative. It won't allow us that. So it's important that we open ourselves up. In order to follow our dreams, we first have to open ourselves up and set ourselves up for that success. Think about that. It's like we want to walk a path, but we can't see the path yet. So we have to align ourselves to the direction of where we want to walk before we can actually start walking it. And the first step of how is we have to first understand the logical mind. And I have another talk that I do, and it's on YouTube if you want to go look at it, and it's called The Duality of the Human Psyche. And it's basically what I just talked about, but I go into vast detail about it and to really explain how those two functionalities work, because it's important to understand the two sides of us and how we can work with that. When I'm training artists, one of the things that we have to do is we have to overcome something called a block. And we might have heard this, like creative blocks, or you might have emotional blocks in your life, things that stop you from feeling or realizing things. And really, what a block is, it's right here in your upper chest. A block is the mind is trying to control what you're feeling in its emotional blocks, and it helps you navigate life. So, for example, if you're going to a job that you hate, you're having these feelings of maybe depressed feelings, feelings of sadness, feelings of despair, all feelings of hopelessness, all of these things. They're inside of you, but the mind doesn't want you to express it, so it blocks it. We also learn throughout life in just regular emotion. Anytime we become emotional, we block it, we block it, we block it. When we build it right here. And it's built right here through tension. And that tension that we create in our body, which is all up here, it's in our upper chest, it's in our shoulders, it's in our jawline, it's in our neck, all up here, that tension can amplify all of the negative things we are feeling. And what I try to express to my actors is that anything you are blocked with in life will also block your creativity. There's no way to be blocked in life and then magically just open up in the creativity. It doesn't work that way. So we first have to heal ourselves. And so this goes back to like, well, if you have any negative events in your life that are happening day in and day out, meaning if there's anything you can control, you must move away. If you are in a job that is bringing you down, please start looking right away for a new one. Right away. And see if you can find a new job. And yes, believe me, I understand sometimes when we go from one job to another, it's like, well, it doesn't pay me as much. I get that. But there's two ways that money work in our life. One is earning more, so then we're more comfortable so we can spend it. The other way is not spending as much. Both bring more income to us. When I was in the corporate world, I got caught up in the money game, meaning I started making more and more money as I moved up the corporate ladder. And when you make more and more money, it's very easy to spend more and more money. And so I would buy nicer clothes, I would buy nicer things, a bigger house, nicer cars, things like that, because I started getting a lot of money. I would eat out more. I would just buy things just because I could. And it took me a long time and therapy to realize that what I was really doing was I was chasing happiness through money. So while I was receiving more income, I was spending it looking for my happiness because my happiness was not involved with actually earning that money. I was doing the work in the corporate world simply for the money, thinking that the money would bring me happiness. And in turn, it wasn't bringing me happiness. I was not happy with what I was doing. I was not happy in that world. I was not happy working so much. I was not happy not having a creative outlet. So I would spend money just to get that dopamine rush for just that momentary thing. You would go and buy a piece of artwork or buy a piece of furniture or buy a jet ski or really crazy things because there's a lot of money going around. And I would end up spending more money than I was earning simply because I was chasing that happiness. When I exited the corporate world, I went from making a very high salary down to making nothing again. I didn't have anything lined up when I left. I just left. I was at a very low point in my life, and I knew I had to make a change. And so when I left, I didn't have any plan. But what I was ready to do was to become a minimalist. And I did at the time. I became a minimalist. Meaning, I got rid of all the material things I didn't need. And I realized that, wow, if I don't need as much, if I don't need the material things as much, I don't need to make as much. And that was an interesting concept. And of course, logically, we can sit here and talk about it and like, well, yeah, of course that makes sense. But it's hard to get that into your emotional side, like deep inside of you really understand that. And so I finally got to that point where I really understood that. And it was like, okay, so I don't need the fancy cars. I don't need the fancy clothes. I don't need like all of these other, I don't need to eat out all the time. I don't need to buy fancy things. And so I started thrifting, which I to this day I do. I thrift things because I don't need to buy new. I don't need to buy I don't need that. Because where I want to put my time and effort is into my art. The best way to do it is to minimize your spending. That way you don't need to make as much. And while you still need to live and you still need to eat and you still need to, clothe yourself and different things like that, there's minimal ways to do that. And the actors I know that have gone through that transformation, that have minimized their spending, have then maximized their ability to follow their dream and do what they love. So that's number one is we first have to get ourselves in check. We first have to evaluate what we're doing. Now the best way to do this in that evaluation of are you doing things every day that make you happy is simply make a list. Right? We get down, we every day we just write down, maybe at the end of every day, you'll write down what did you do today and how did you feel about it? Just like a positive or negative thing. And write down everything that you did. Well, I got up and I did some exercising today. Great, I did some exercising. How did it make you feel? Did you like it or did you not like it? It's like, yeah, I liked it. Okay, good, good. What else did you do? Well, I went to my job today. So I went to my job. Good. Did you like it or not like it? Well, I didn't like that. No. Maybe even a why. Why? No, I didn't like it because I don't like the environment. Okay. I had lunch with a friend. I like that. Okay. Everything that you do. So you make a list every day, and then we do it again tomorrow, and we do it again the next day, and we do it again the next day, and then over a few weeks, you now have a data set. So in data analysis, right, we need a strong enough data set. So 3 weeks will give you enough of data to look at. And now categorize work, categorize lunch with friends, categorize exercising, like all of the things that you can put into groups, categorize them and see how many times it either made you happy or it didn't. The things that made you unhappy 90% of the time, and sometimes it's all of the time, try to find those things in your data. It's like, you know what? Every time I went to work, I was unhappy. It's like, okay, now you have a few weeks of data of that. You have 3 weeks or 4 weeks of data of that. It's not going to change. That is something that you can draw a box around and say, okay, this I need to remove from my life. Or maybe, interestingly enough, you realize, wow, every time I had lunch or I met up with this particular person, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a family member, every single time I had a negative feeling about it. It's like, ooh, okay, that's an interesting one. So that means you should spend less time with that person. Because to set ourselves up for success, we need more positive energy coming into us. We need to be able to feel those things. So we want to align ourselves. Again, this is all about aligning to the path that we're going to walk. So we're setting ourselves up for success to follow our dreams. So you have to figure out what are the negative events in your life. And I'm not talking about things happen on a day-to-day that might be a negative event one time. I'm talking about the repetition of that. Anything that is repeating is a negative event. Find it and we have to remove it. If it's your job, then find another job. Or figure out what about your job it is. So some people work for very big companies, and it's like, well, I like the company, I just don't like this position. Well, maybe talk to a boss about moving to a different position. But do something. Take an active approach. If there's negative people in your life, remove them. And it's not like you have to have any sort of big conversation. Simply become busy when they ask, hey, do you have time to get together? Say, no, I'm sorry, I'm too busy today. Maybe next week. That's it. It doesn't have to be any sort of big conflict or anything else, but you are in charge of your time. It's the one thing we actually have control over in this life. It's that one big choice that we can make is what am I choosing to put my time into today? And sure, choices can have consequences, but it feels good to honor because I'll if someone's like really 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 depressed about their job or something else, I'm like, just don't go. They're like, yeah, but I'll get fired. I'm like, well, then you won't have to worry about it anymore. I mean, yeah, there's the consequence of that, but get it out of your life and go find something else to do. The great artists and really the great people in life did not allow the noise from others to get in the way of what they wanted to do. They kept moving forward no matter what. Okay, so that's number one is we have to start realigning yourself because it's more important for me, just so you understand, and this is when I teach all artists. I teach both acting in my studio to many, many artists there, but I also teach at the local university and I teach directing and filmmaking over there. And so I teach kind of the other side of things over there. And regardless of who I talk to, the biggest thing I come down to is I want you to be happy. More than successful, meaning financially successful or anything else, I want you to be happy. I want you to find a way to love what you do day in and day out. Because if you love what you do every single day, you are already successful. You've already won the game of life. If you wake up and you're excited to do whatever it is that you're doing. You don't have to make it all the way to Hollywood. You don't have to make it all the way to Broadway. You don't have to make it all the way to London or whatever it is. You don't have to. It's like those are destinations. Those don't bring happiness. You could be, as an actor, you could be happy doing community level theater for the rest of your life if it's what you love doing. You could be doing independent film for the rest of your life and be really happy doing that. The important thing is that you love what you do. So then this next thing I want to look at, and then I'm going to get into some questions, is first align yourself to the path. That is absolutely number one. Next, work on the things you love no matter what. Because as we go through our day, it's even if you have, okay, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to get up and I'm going to work on my craft. I'm going to, I'm a writer, so I'm going to do some writing. Or I'm an actor, so I'm going to work on something acting related, whatever it might be. But then the day comes and different things get in the way. It's like, oh, I forgot. Yeah, I need to run to the store for something. Oh, I forgot. I need to do this thing. Oh, I have to prepare for a work event. Oh, I have to, like, all of these other things. They start getting in the way. And we push off the like our craft. We push that off in order to do all of these mundane things we don't want to do. So the next step, and you have to be strict on this, prioritize you and your craft. Prioritize doing something creative every single day. Now, creative could be taking a walk in nature. That really is creativity, just being in nature, taking a walk, looking at the flowers or the plants or, whatever's around you. I mean, just taking that in. That could be creative. Creative could be sitting down and just writing a short story. It could be a one-page short story, but just writing something, fueling that creativity. Creativity could be, you know what, I'm going to come on here and be on an acting session today and just do something on a topic that I love. Yes, then do that. But whatever it is, don't ever scratch your creativity to do something logical. Don't ever put that down to do something else. You must fuel and feed your creativity on a daily basis. It's one small step at a time, and we must never, ever stop doing that. Going back to the first thing I talked about, though, is if we're putting ourselves in a negative state, meaning if we have negative energy around us, if we're feeling tense, if we're feeling the weight on our shoulders, all of those things, if we're feeling all of that, which is the stress of life, we won't have any energy to be creative with. So by aligning yourself to the path, it allows you to begin walking it. And just doing one small step every single day, even if it's 10 minutes, one small step every single day without fail, then that will start growing and that will start leading you to bigger and better things. And once your creative mind starts working, right? Once you allow these creative juices and feelings to start emanating out of you, you will have new ideas. You will have amazing creative thoughts and ideas and things that you can do. And then the last thing before I get into the questions is you must have faith. And what I mean in faith, you can have faith in different ways. You can have religious faith because that helps, belief in a higher power, and have that faith that your higher power is leading you somewhere, but you have to trust it. You have to really have faith in that is trusting you, and trust that your higher power is going to guide you in the direction that you need. You can have spiritual faith, where it's not religious, but it's still spiritual in the universe and in the world around you, and that is leading you into the next phase. So trust in that, and you must have faith in yourself. It's critical. You must have faith in yourself. This is the hardest one. It's absolutely the hardest one. But we do this. So in the very first day of our in-studio classes, we tell all of the actors, this is day one of our entire process, but we tell all of our actors to write down 3 little words. And those words are, I am enough. That's it. I am enough. And we tell all the students, write this down, and write it down in a place where you see it every day, and that you can read it or say it back to yourself every single day. I am enough. And at first you might not believe it. Or at first you might think, oh, this is silly. Why am I doing this? And yes, that's the logical side of you thinking that it's silly. It wants to discount this thing, I am enough. Because I am enough means you, your emotional core, who you truly are underneath everything else. But the logical mind won't stop you from saying it or stop you from letting it in. So it allows those words to come in and begin working on you. I am enough. And if you do it every day, it serves as a kind of Trojan horse to our emotional system, meaning the mind is not a big enough thing where the mind is going to fight against it or defend against it. It doesn't see a threat in those 3 words. So it lets it in. And after saying it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month straight every single day, all of a sudden it begins to work on you. And there's a day where you say, I am enough. And for a moment you believe it. You feel it. And you're like, yeah, I am. And for that moment, you're able to begin seeing the world a little bit differently. And you're beginning to create faith in yourself and your own abilities. So then you continue with that. I am enough. Every day. You can put it on your bathroom mirror. You can put it on your phone. You can put it in your car. It doesn't matter. Put it somewhere where you see it every single day. We've had students get it tattooed on themselves. I am enough. Because the more you say it, but you have to be disciplined to go through the first few weeks of forcing yourself to say it every day, even if you don't believe it or even if you think it's silly. But it begins creating self-confidence and self-faith, the belief in yourself. That builds more confidence than just about anything else. And it's so simple. It's so simple. So having faith in a higher power, in the world around you and in the universe, and then ultimately in yourself, having faith that, yes, it's leading me where I need to go. Let me trust that. Let me not stand in the way of that. I don't want to allow my fear to stand in the way of that. It allows me to then begin walking that path fully. So first step, align. Second step, begin walking the path. And then have that faith that that path is going to lead you somewhere. And it will. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. And the only time I see it not happen is when someone starts walking the path, but then they align back to one that is really not theirs. They let the fear take over and they operate out of fear. Trust in yourself. If you have this dream of being an artist, it means you already are one. You're already an artist. The artist is already inside of you. It just wants to come out. Give it the ability to come out and play. And I promise you, you will find success within that. It may not be, all the riches of millions of dollars of financial success, but that's not really success. Money won't make you happy. But will it lead you to the ability to be creative every single day? Yes, and that will lead you to be happy every single day, and that's the name of the game, being happy. When you get to the end of your life, you're going to look back. You're not thinking, I wish I would have accumulated more, because you can't take it with you. But you will look back and regret the chances you didn't take. So take those chances. Try it. I promise you it pays dividends. Okay, so I want to get to some questions. I have some questions that were sent in ahead of time, and then there's some others. So, yeah, I have someone on here asking about the online classes that we do. And online, we have a prepackaged course that we've started doing, and I love doing these. And one of the things I've wanted to do for so long is, I'm so contained where we are in teaching in person that it was like, I wish I could reach, people all over the place. And, some people have suggested, well, what if you opened a studio in LA, and what if you opened a studio in Chicago, and what if I'm like, yeah, I can, but it's very difficult. There's a certain way to teaching. Like, I can't be in all of those locations. And there's a certain way that I enjoy teaching that I want to make sure that the message gets out there. So it dawned on me at some time a few years ago, well, what if we prepackage certain things that I can do and try to get the lessons out that way? And we've done that. And yes, and I see that you've let's see, Shelley from Chicago has done that. And thank you so much for being a part of that. And yes, we plan to put out additional courses in the future. We're working on those now. This first one was kind of our first one out there. We wanted to make sure it was received well, and then we're going to be adding more to that. So thank you so much for being a part of that. All right, let me see. Just reading through some of these other questions. So from Italy, we have someone on from Italy asking, you're saving money for studying acting, but you don't know if it's better to apply for an academy or do some workshops around the UK and the USA. What do I think? So ideally, workshops are good as starters. Workshops are definitely great as starting to get into it because they're shorter form. You can spend less money on it, and it allows you to begin dabbling in acting. But the best thing to do would be to go to a long-term training, which would be more of what we call like an academy, or what we call a conservatory here. So at Truthful Acting, for example, actors study with us for 3 to 5 years. Sometimes we have actors that have been with us for 8 to 10 years. Because we offer so many different classes. There's our initial program, which takes 8 months to go through, and that's kind of our foundational program that actors go through. But beyond that, we have many, many, many different semesters. And when I say semesters, we're like a university. We're structured like that in the sense of a semester is 4 months long. It's 100 hours of class time per semester. And so we have actors that have stayed in the program for that long, learning the full aspect of acting. And you can do this all over the world. There are different conservatories or academies that you can do that. But what I would say, make sure you fully check out wherever you're going to study. Don't just check out the program. Check out the instructors. What I've found through my own career in acting is that it's more important who you're learning from than what. Meaning even if you go to a reputable school or something that looks reputable, if you don't align with the instructor, if you don't feel like this is somebody you can trust and you don't feel comfortable with this person guiding you, art is way too vulnerable to be able to do that. If you don't trust the instructor, you won't really learn as an artist because it's not logical information that you're learning. It's emotional. And so you need to have the ability to trust someone to guide you. To me personally, learning an art form like acting is as vulnerable as going to therapy because we get into that detail, that level of our personal vulnerability. We're exploring that. And just like if any of you have ever gone to a therapist or counseling before, if you don't absolutely trust the therapist sitting across from you, you won't fully open up to them. You won't go where you need to go to then really heal from whatever it is that you're there for. So you have to absolutely trust that person. And with art and with acting, it's the same way. So if they let you audit, or what we do, we don't audit, we don't allow auditing in our classes, but we will. I do things like this, so you get to know who I am before you study with me. Or we have open houses at our studio where if you're in the area, you can come in and meet us and see the place. And it's very important that you feel comfortable with whoever you're learning from. So that's something that's very important in that. So Emma asks, how do I get an agent? So an agent is going to be, so as an actor, and just a quick study on how this breaks down. As an actor, we want to get a role in something bigger, let's say. Let's say we want to be on the next season of Stranger Things or the next season of, whatever it might be, Loki season 3 or something. And in order to do that, we have to go to an audition. But the auditions are closed to only certain actors that have an agent. An agent has access to those auditions and will send actors on there. But not just anyone can audition for that. So as an actor, when we reach a certain level in the industry, not in the beginning, but when we reach a certain level, when we're ready to apply to audition for these bigger parts, then we have to have an agent, and the agent will send us on those auditions. But the agent is looking for a couple things before they sign you, a talent agent. You need to have the basics. You need to have a headshot, which is a picture of you. It's a picture of your head, basically, but it's a picture of you and your eyes and the emotion inside of you. And it's something very specific that we do. But you need to have a headshot. You need to have an acting resume. And then you need to apply for that agent. They are going to be looking for training. Where have you trained and what have you trained in? What is your experience? Because believe it or not, we have to get experience on our own before we can then get an agent to get further experience. But we can. As an actor, we have local theater. It's community theater or like church-based theater. There's plenty of theater we can get involved in that doesn't take much experience to do. There is student films at universities all over that have film departments. Their students have to make films as part of their learning. So they're always looking for actors. There's independent films, meaning people that are on their own making films and looking for actors. This typically won't require you to have an agent. And then there's acting classes that you can take, classes that you can get involved in that teach you in the acting, and all of that goes on your resume. And these are things that you do on your own to start building a resume, so then when you apply for the agent, they can look over and say, yes, I think you're ready for me to send you out on bigger and better things. And so that's kind of how that works. Now, how to apply, you have to do a search, and wherever you are, just do either acting agents or talent agents near me. See what agents are around. Go to their websites. Every agency has a different way to apply for them. Some is right on their website, like there's a form to fill out. Others will say, send me an email with this information. Others will say, I need you to put together some information and mail it to me. That still exists. So it really depends. And then some will say what times of the year to do that as well. But every agent is different, so you have to follow their individual guidelines for submission. And that's the best way to do that. And I'll have another one of these sessions where I go over industry things like that, so we can go into more detail in that. All right, let me get into just a few more other questions that we had come up. And this is, I want to be an actor, but I don't know where to start. What is something I can do to get started? And this is kind of what I was talking about this whole time, right? You have to align yourself to a path and then start walking it. But the best way to start walking it is take a class. Number one, take an acting class, wherever you're at. Now, some classes are more expensive than others, so I understand money is a concern. So find a class that fits your budget. If you can, do an in-person acting class. If you can. If you can fit it in your schedule and you can fit in your budget, do it in person. If you can't, there are live things like this where we're still here together. I can answer questions live and we can do those things. So you can do or we have classes over Zoom. We have so doesn't matter where in the world you are, you can still jump on, but be part of something live. And that would be number two I would do. And then the other is like what Shelley from Chicago did, is take our prepackaged online course. That is great if your schedule doesn't allow you or your budget doesn't allow you to take an in-person or live class. Because with those, you can study at your own pace on your own time. So like in ours, it's me still talking to you, much like I'm doing now, but I have prepackaged lessons, and I'll guide you through each lesson as we go through it. And I'll take you through that, but you get to choose when you're going to sign on, when you're going to work on the material, so forth. So that's those are some good ways to do that. You could also read acting books, all sorts of different things, but just get started and working on that in any way you can. That's the thing. Take the first step and then don't stop. All right, the next question is, how can I also focus on acting when I'm on a different career path? So I have a couple follow-up questions to that, and one is, if you want to be an actor, why are you on a different career path? Usually, I hear this from students. So when I teach at the university, and I'll hear from students, it's like, well, my parents want me to do this, but I really want to do this. And I'm like, I understand why your parents want you to go into medicine or law or engineering or something that, very solid industry that appears to have a lot of money. I mean, of course, parents want their kids, for the most part, parents want their kids to be safe and to be secure. And as a parent, I can tell you that we fear that our kids are not going to set themselves up properly to be able to pay for their own rent or to do their own things. And so it's very logical for a parent to say, here, go down this path because there's more money involved. But what I've seen is that students that do that and they'll go get an engineering degree, come out, and then they don't use it because that's not what they want to do. Or they'll go get a law degree and then they'll hate their work day in and day out. And so we're back at the same spot. So the first thing is reevaluate your career path, or choose a career path if you're still studying. If you're still able to do this, choose a career path that parallels or benefits your acting. So career paths that benefit acting are studying psychology, studying the human behavior. Absolutely helps with then stepping into different characters as an actor. Studying language, because language is what our art is based on. So here in the U.S., for example, if you have the aspiration to coming to Hollywood and be a U.S. film actor, then studying English and the English language is very important. But if wherever you are around the world, study the language of the art that you're going to be working in. That's with the storytelling, structure, literature, all of those things. So very important to do. And the last one is history, studying history. History is something that all of our stories, whether they're in the Marvel universe or whether it's a drama or a comedy, all of our stories are versions of historical tales. And we just retell them over and over and over again in different ways. Studying history allows you to understand the story. So you can do that. Now, if you're already set, if you're older and you're already set on a career path and this is what you're doing, then it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is find a way. You don't have to do anything right now. If you're okay with your job, if you're in a career and you're like, well, it's okay, I'd rather be doing acting, but this is okay, great. Keep your job. So that way you're stable with your money and nothing has to change. But fit it into your schedule somehow, some way to take an acting class, to start getting involved doing that. And we have several students that do that. They're older, they're attorneys, they're in the medical field, they're engineering field, they're business or corporate life. They're still doing that stuff, and then they come to us and they're getting now involved in acting. And it's wonderful to see. And they we have some that started just taking the class because they wanted to open themselves up, and now they are acting so much. It's incredible, and it's so wonderful to see. And at some point, you'll start making money in acting, and then you can decide where do I want to stay in this career, or do I want to switch over to acting full time? Can I start an acting career using social media? This is a very common question nowadays. Is can I go on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok and begin an acting career that way? And the short answer is for acting itself, no, social media is not enough. But social media can give you an outlet to start building a fan base. So it can start building your celebrity if with your awareness to others. It can start building that side of you, and it can give you a creative outlet to try new things and to be creative on. And I think that's where there's a benefit. Doing YouTube videos, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram, any of those things, like Reels, or it just gives you an outlet to try things and to be an actor. And so I think there's a huge benefit there. If you can be creative and have an outlet to express that and then have other people watch it, I think all of that is a huge benefit. Now, as far as being an actual actor, though, you need training. Actors need to be trained because it's a very difficult field. So when I read this, it's much like, well, can I start a career as being a surgeon on social media? It's like, I mean, you might be able to learn some things from surgeons that are already out there, from different doctors that are already out there. There's some learning that you can do and some different things there. But there's so much training involved that you're not going to get solely through social media, whether you're a content creator or you're consuming it. So that's where it's you can do both. Use social media as an outlet, be creative, gain a following. That's all very positive stuff to do. But in addition, train, train, train. Ooh, here's one. How do you overcome self-doubt? So I'll try to go through this quickly because we're getting to the end of our session. And I might go a few minutes over today because this is important. But self-doubt is that voice up here. Remember I was talking about there's two sides of us. There's the part of you in here, the logical mind, and your emotional core. You, who you truly are, is down here in your emotional core. That's the part of you that lives in this moment, right here, right now. Believe it or not, your logical mind is not in this moment. Just your emotional core is. Your logical mind is thinking about the past and thinking about the future. It's outside the moment. It's thought about things that are not happening now. And so that's where self-doubt comes from. It's what we call our fear center. But believe it or not, we have two voices inside our head. The two voices come from the child emotional core who wants to go do something. That's the part of you that gets excited about doing something, excited about an idea, excited about creation, whatever it is. That's the part of you that does that. It's down here. That's who you are. Your emotional core will not ever self-criticize. That voice in you will not self-criticize. So then where does that come from? That comes from up here. Logical thought is self-criticism. It leads to it. Fear is self-criticism. But, and here's a really important distinction. When you have a self-critical thought in your head, when you have something that says, I am not good enough, I can't do this, I'll never be able, what, all of those things, that's actually not you saying that. I just want to let that sink in for a second. Negative self thoughts that you have is not you. It's your logical mind replaying back to you in your own voice, which makes it confusing, but it replays it back to you in your own voice, something someone else has said to you in your history. In your past, someone, or maybe multiple people, have made you feel not good enough. Maybe they've even said directly, you're not good enough, or you shouldn't be doing this, or you're not good, whatever it is. Any negativity that came to you, and it could be from a parent, it could be from a teacher, it could be from friends, even, it could be from bullies, it could be who knows where, a boss, I don't know. They come from all over the place. But the mind stores those negative things that are coming from us from outside. It stores them because it doesn't want you to receive that again. And then it replays it back to you in order to then navigate you away from ever hearing those negative criticisms again. But that's not who you are. You actually don't believe that all those negative things. The part of you that is in here believes that you are enough, which is why I want you to say that over and over and over and every single day, because that part of you really believes that. That's the innocent child wanting to go out and play. That's who you really are. So one of the ways of overcoming self-doubt is first realizing where it comes from. And so the next time you have a negative self-thought in your head, something that tells you you're not good enough for something, I want you to then think and reflect on, where did I learn that? Who told me that? Whose voice is really in my head? Because when you're able to realize that, and sometimes it's very clear, you'll know immediately, oh, this comes from this person. And sometimes it might be a little more fuzzy, and you might have to maybe do some creative writing on it or reflecting on it. But when you're able to separate out how you feel versus what you've been taught, now we can begin overcoming it. When you realize it's actually not you having that doubt, it's other people. So just sit with that for a little while and reflect on that. It's very, very important, and hopefully it helps some of you be able to navigate some of the negative things that you might be thinking. Okay, we are just about out of time there. So thank you for everyone for being with us today. I put our contact information back up here. So if you have any other questions that you have that you didn't get to ask today, or many times it's what I'll hear is we get done with these sessions and then I have people say, oh, I wish I would have asked that. And that comes up, but you still have an opportunity to, because you can email us right here at info@truthfulacting.com, or you can call or text us at the number below. When you call or text us, it goes right to Samantha, who's been on with us, and you can correspond with her about anything, whether it's about our studio, about what we have coming up there, or our classes, or anything else. If you have, hey, I had this other thought or this question about the industry I forgot to ask, send it out and ask us. And we will, if anything that needs to be passed on to me, she will absolutely do that, and I'll respond back to you. Because we want to be here to help all of you, all around the world. My goal is to help as many people reach their dreams as possible, and I just want all of you to find your happiness in life. That's really my main concern. And because if we find our happiness, we are successful. And that's what I really care about for you. Finding your happiness, which will lead you to success. Thank you for being with me today. I really appreciate it. I love doing this, and without you being here with me, I don't have this to do. So I really appreciate it. We'll be back again, hopefully. I do these periodically, so we'll be back again. I'll post the next one on the website when it's time, and I hope to see you all back on here again. So thank you so much. I'll see you again soon.